with me, if I did this and I saw that it worked and I could actually open the bank accounts myself and kind of keep it self-contained, I know I'd fucking McDonald's it. I'd turn it into a mill. Next thing I'd be renting 5 fucking houses, meeting people left and right, doing the, I'd be going on and on and on. Next thing you know, I'd turn a scam that basically would end up being a probational offense into a federal charge, and I'd have to do 10
into
years.
A conspiracy.
Hey, this is Matt Cox, and I'm here with John Boziak from Boziak Conundrum, and we are talking about what were you gonna say?
Fraud.
Talking about fraud. Talking about it's an evolving conversation that we had, and it's basically you're saying it's fraud, so so let's get into it.
We were talking about two different things actually. I initially thought that the conversation we were having was about
rental
properties overcharging you on rental applications.
So like management companies.
Yes. Yeah. You said some kind of consumer. Would you call it a consumer fraud?
Yeah. Yeah. Because to me, even what you're talking about, it's a scam, because you can go into a place. Like when I went in and applied for this place, I walked in, I was like, look, I looked at the place. This is when I lived in, when I was in Apollo Beach, which is in Florida. So when I went in, brand new place, and I told the guy, I said, listen, man, I got great credit scores, but I just got out of prison. Like, I think it was wasn't even like a year and a half earlier. I was like, I just got out of prison, and if you're going to run a criminal background check, I don't know what's going to show up. And he said, no, I think you'll be fine. I think you'll be fine. But the truth is, let's face it, I probably wasn't going to be fine.
Right.
So, but he was willing to take $300 from me to run the criminal background check and my credit, knowing that he probably felt like I wasn't going to be past the background check. He was shocked when it came back and nothing showed up.
Right.
And he was like, yeah, you don't have a problem. You can move in. And he was like, I thought you said you had something on there. And like, if it had shown up, like if let's say something like a state charge had shown up, I probably wasn't going to get in there. But he didn't have any idea, but he had no problem taking the $300. And you said basically the same thing has happened to you over and over again.
In Phoenix.
Right.
I've never had this problem really anywhere else but Phoenix. Phoenix just seems to be a hotbed for this shit. Like, I would probably apply to 5 different apartment complexes every day, and they wanted about $325 after all was all said and done. Now that's application fee, that's administration fee, that's whatever else they want to fucking charge you. So it's about $300, give or take. Sometimes it was $240, sometimes it was $300. At the very least, it was $150. Right. And so say I apply to 5 apartment complexes every day for a week, and at those prices, that's ridiculous. We're talking about $5 or $6 grand at the end of the week just applying to apartment complexes. At the end of which they all pretty much just tell me to go fuck myself because they knew I wasn't going to get approved anyway. They looked at my credit, and I told them my credit history before I moved in. They knew damn well, but they like I said, they're like, well, let's just run it.
Of course, they don't mind running.
Yeah, and they're always adamant about bringing that payment with you. Like they always make sure they touch on that 4 or 5 times before the end of the conversation that you need to bring a money order with you, and you need to fill it out to this name, and it needs to be for this amount.
Well, I was thinking,
fucking dirty cocksuckers. So
there was a chick that I knew that I'd met, and she had applied. She was like, she had gone through a divorce. She had an eviction. She had bad credit. She said, I've been paying my rent now for, I forget what it was. It was like 6 months straight. She said, but because of COVID, she lost her job. She said it took her some time to get the COVID funds and stuff for her kids and everything. Like took a month or two to get the money. And her landlord, she thought they were working with her, but when people were asking, they were saying that she was like months late on her, but they couldn't evict her. And then she paid the back rent. But it doesn't matter when they were like, oh, yeah, she's 3 months late. So she was going out trying to find another house, and she had applied at like 5 different places. She said but around $150. This was she was applying in St. Petersburg. And she was saying that she had spent whatever, 5 or 6, $150 roughly, sometimes 200 roughly, at all these places, and she would go in and tell them, look, this is what's going to show up. This is what's happening. And they'd go, well, let's pull it and see. Well, of course you want me to pull it and see. It's $200 in your pocket.
Yeah. And basically they just pay a reoccurring, maybe like $39.99 fee to some service every month,
right,
that they can just put in your information and get it right back. So really all the fee is you're paying them just to sit down in front of a computer and type in your information for say 10 minutes. And if they hit 5 or 6 people like that every single day, they don't need to rent any fucking apartments because they can just fucking continue that cash wheel.
Right.
Unregulated. You know what I mean?
I should ask my ex-wife about that and see what she charges people. But because, but what we were talking about, we were having we were having conversation about 2 different things. Yeah. I was saying, like,
you could just make it up.
Like, what a scam.
Yeah.
And you were like, well, no, it's legit. And I was like, no, it's a scam. And then we realized that we were talking about 2 different things. Is that I was saying, like, almost like not a legitimate scam, but I mean, that's a pretty solid scam. Like, if you went and rented an Airbnb for a week and put in, rooms for rent, or if you even put that the whole place was for rent, people would show up.
See, here's my issue with that. Most Airbnbs they have neighbors.
Right.
Most neighbors know the owners of the Airbnb and know that property is an Airbnb.
Right. But what's the problem?
So the neighbors see all these people showing up to this house over the course of a week every single day. Like, people are nosy as fuck. And somebody's going to call the owners and be like, listen, this guy's got people fucking coming over here.
So he's got 4 people a day coming by. They pull up, they go in for about 20 minutes, they come back, and then they're leaving. Like, first of all, that's a nosy neighbor. Secondly, if the owner called me, I'd say, yeah, I'm here for vacation, or I'm here on a business trip. I've got, all you need is the explanation. Yeah, I'm here on business. These are people that are coming here. We're having meetings. We're doing videos. Yeah. You can say you're doing whatever you want to do.
And most properties have like Ring doorbell cameras and property cameras all over. So the owners can see that you're showing the property.
Well, I mean, first of all, they don't have cameras inside.
Well, yeah, you're right. On the outside. Well, some do.
Secondly, they don't know what you're saying inside. And like, to me, that's such a minor risk. Like, one, it could be rooms for rent. You could do rooms for rent. You could do, for instance,
you still have to physically show up at the property, though.
But that's fine. I've got it for like a week or so. Think about that. If I'm renting the place out for $1,000 for a week, and then I already know I'm going to rent it. Like, you can go on their website, pull their pictures off. You set up a whole little application. Yeah. You put it on Craigslist. My buddy Treon, I was telling him, look, you need to buy a house and start renting rooms. And he's, because he's got money. When I said renting a room, he was like, nobody rents rooms. I was like, okay, yeah, you're delusional. Like, he's never struggled in his life. So he doesn't understand what the average guy goes through. So I was like, absolutely. And he goes, for what? And I said, people will pay $150, $125 a week easily. And that was 3 years ago. I was in the halfway house, and I said, you don't think that's a thing? He goes, no, we did the numbers. I was like, that's an outrageous amount of money you can make. And I said, all you do is go buy a single family house. Think about if you bought a single family house 3 years ago and was doing this, how much money he'd have right now, and how much it would have appreciated. But he didn't do it. So I said, if you want to know for sure, I said, run an ad in Craigslist. Listen, within about 2 or 3 hours, he'd had 20 people that wanted to rent his room. And he took some average looking pictures and put them up. Like, he wanted all these, like, oh, that's a nice picture. Let's put it. I go, no, don't put a nice picture. Let's put a crappy looking room. Let's put a lower middle class house. Like, you're saying it doesn't work. You're wanting to put up all nice stuff. Let's put lower middle class. I said, you're going to see. I was shocked. 20 some odd people. And guys were literally like, did you already get the money? Like, I'll Zelle you the money, like, right now. I'll like, people were ready to give them the money without seeing the room. I'm saying, if you actually had a place, you did that. You really said, I'm going to rent this place out. People would show up and they would give you their application fee. I'll bet you, just like that chick that was renting out Airbnbs or whatever, she was taking people's deposits, probably a few $1,000s for a deposit. If you were to do that, how much money could you make? I'll bet you could make $10,000 for the $1,000. I'll bet you could easily make $10,000 in a week, easily.
Yeah.
If you sat there and you do the numbers, and you're saying you were 300. I'm saying if they paid a $200 application fee, and 4 people a day showed up. $200, that's $800 times 5. That's $4,000, and that's super reasonable. Hey, if you guys didn't know, I do paintings, and if you're interested in a painting, I'm going to leave my contact information in the description beneath the video. Back to the video. Look, it's not just that. As soon as I got the 4,000, I'd immediately just keep renting the place. Rent it for another week. Like, I already got the ad going. Like, hey, here's another $1,000. Let's keep this going.
Yeah.
But I
can't move in till the 1st, and it's like the 3rd.
Like, listen, not just
you
that.
can do it for a whole month.
Think about it.
And then burn that one and go on to another one and do it again.
4 people a day is easy. That's 4 people a day is easy. All you need is a fake ID and a prepaid credit card to get the property and a cell phone. I mean, that's literally...
You still got to put your face on it, though. And everybody that came there and got robbed is going to be able to identify you. So is the Airbnb plus fucking your face is probably going to be on some cameras. Every Airbnb has cameras. I don't give a fuck.
Right, I understand, but your name is John Doe.
Right.
The debit card's John Doe. The cell phone is a burner.
Well, you'd have to be like a guy like you.
Yeah.
You couldn't be a guy like me doing it. Like I wouldn't, there would be no way.
I think because you've probably got a 50% chance of getting caught. I've got a 1 in 100% chance. If I was an average guy, and if you were to go to like, you lived in Tampa and you went to Orlando and you did this, look, once this started paying off, I'd be doing 3 of them in Orlando. Then look, if you're making 4 or 5, like we're talking about 4 a day. If you were getting 8 people a day, and it doesn't matter if they're showing up at the same time, especially if it's rooms for rent. So not just that, like how much money if they came in and you said, look, the rooms are going fast. I already got these 2 rented. So give me $200 for your application fee and give me the first 2 weeks for your deposit plus this. Give me all the cash now and I'll hold the room. As soon as your app comes back, you'll be fine. There's $400. Well, shoot, more like $500 if you tell me $150 deposit, $150 for the first week, $200 for your application fee. Bet you guys will give you that right then. Boom, here's the money. Hold it. No problem. Give me 5-6 days. 5-6 days, I'm gone. And that's if you're running one ad, 4 or 5 people a day. If you could get 8 or 9, that's, boy, just thinking about this gets me excited. It's so fucking sad. So sad. And that's if you're not even trying to, then you could also listing the house is where you definitely get into a problem. But you definitely, that's something to think about.
It's definitely
for somebody else.
Yeah,
Someone
definitely
else.
For somebody else. I wouldn't. I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole.
See, to me, that's perfect. I'm more than I'd be like if I wasn't so recognizable. Not that I'm. I mean, if I wasn't like I'm already fucking done, right? But if I was Joe Schmo, I'd be like, absolutely.
Oh yeah, if I didn't listen, if I didn't look the way I did, because anything that I do or anything that I would get involved in like that, I would have to involve other people. I would need someone else to do things.
Oh, yeah,
you know what I mean? Like
I was going to say, no, I could do it all myself, but you're right. Because you don't want to be,
there's no way, so it's like, and then I don't, if you know anything about me or my crimes, I don't involve anybody in anything I'm doing. So I like to do everything on my own. That way there's no liability because I can only be responsible for myself. And if I fuck up, that's on me. But I'm not going to spend 20 years in prison because this asshole forgot to tie his fucking shoes in the morning. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Before he left the fucking house.
Yeah. He leaves his wallet there.
Yeah. Get the fuck I can't.
Or he likes some chick and he gives her his, like I literally knew a guy that was in prison that their whole scam was, it was a timeshare scam. It was actually brilliant, to be honest. You know what he was doing? So this guy was despicable. Okay. I'm going to say this. He was despicable. You would love him though. Like I loved him. I thought he was hilarious. I mean, I wouldn't trust him as far as I could throw him. He was just a fucking scumbag, but he was unapologetic and he was vicious and he would tell stories and mock his victims. Like it was horrible. He's like, so I get this lady and I know I got her because she's got to be like 80 years old. And she's like, well, I don't know. I got to call my financial manager and have him check. And he's like, ma'am, listen, I understand. I've already talked to John. John said, and I'm like, no. He's like, yeah, can you believe that? Like I would say, well, give me his number. I'll call him. And I'd hang up and then I'd call back and say, I just spoke with John. John said it's a great idea. And he needs you to go ahead and wire that money to, and I was like, you're fucking, like, what do you think hell's going to be like? He's like, I'm good with it. I'm good with it. I mean, you know how he got caught? So he got a list of people that had once had timeshares. But eventually they got old or they just said, you know what, I never use this thing. And they just stopped paying. So once they stopped paying, then they have collection companies that try and call them and say, hey, you still owe. Well, then after 5 or 6 years, they kind of just stop. And then maybe they might revisit it 5 or 6 years later. Like these are people that have bought these lists trying to collect on $12,000 or $50,000 or $20,000 worth of back dues or whatever. His scam was he would get these lists and he would actually call and pay. Like you can call and pay, and whatever, it's 50 cents for a name or $1 for a name. And he's, I'd get a list and I'd look up the condo, whatever, the timeshares, they're condos. So he goes, I'd look them up and he would call the people, and he said he'd call them up and he'd say, listen, you understand that you had a timeshare and such and such. And they'd be like, yeah, man, I'm not paying that. They're like, no, the building's being sold. Oh, okay. So what does that mean? I don't owe no more? No. Well, first of all, yeah, you do owe. Like you owe $7,000. You know you're $17,000 behind or $6,000 or whatever. I understand you don't have it. Problem is, because it's a timeshare, you're actually listed on and then he would name whatever the document is that they're listed on. He goes, well, the issue is that the building's being sold. And they were like, okay, well, we need you to sign off on the building, on your portion of the timeshare. And they'd be like, what do you mean? He'd go, well, look, the building's being sold for, $145 million. Once you divvy that up, your portion of that would be this much. We need you to sign off on that and we can release it. The problem is that your unit is 2 months or 2 years behind on the taxes. Plus you owe the lien on it from you for $7,000 or whatever. We can take that out of the proceeds, but what we can't do, but somebody has to pay for this and this and this up front, or we have to sue for quiet title. Like he had a whole list of things, and he told me what he was telling, what he would tell these people, and as he's talking to it, now you understand, I understand exactly how transactions like this work, and I'm going, none of that makes sense. He goes, they don't know anything. They're idiots, or they're in their 70s.
Listen, anybody that has a timeshare is a fucking idiot anyway.
Right. So, but they would believe it. Next thing you know, they're fucking sending him $3,500, $4,500, $7,200, $1,200. And so
we were in Coleman with a couple of those timeshare guys.
Yeah, but those were the guys on the front end.
Yeah.
So you know what he said? He said, listen, just like you said, if they're stupid enough to have bought a timeshare to begin with, 5 years later, he goes, they're no smarter. And now it's not, hey, I get a cheap vacation. Now it's, hey, you're about to get a check for fucking $32,000, but you have to pay $4,100 up front to get it. Hey, if you guys didn't know, I do paintings, and if you're interested in a painting, I'm going to leave my contact information in the description beneath the video. Back to the video. And then he would say, look, if they were like, man, this doesn't sound right, this sounds like a scam, he'd say, okay, well, you call me back. I work for the Sheraton. And somehow or another, he had a registered a phone number. First of all, he was using a spoof app. So when he called them, he called from the Sheraton or the whatever. The same,
you can make it say whatever you want, yeah.
From their timeshare. So they got a phone call from the Sheraton whatever timeshare. They got a call. Then they would call it back and it'd go to his phone and they'd be like, it's legit. I'm calling whoever it was. So they would send him the money, but he didn't open the bank accounts. He and his buddy went out partying. They've got Rolexes or whatever the super cool watch is now. And they're pulling up in limos and they've got tons of money. And they would meet girls and the girls would be like, hey, what do you do? What do you do? Because he was like, man, these chicks in New York, he's like they're all trying to get money. They would say, do you have a bank account? So they're getting the girls. Keep in mind, he doesn't have a fake ID or anything. These are just low-level kind of, telemarketer kind of guys that just call.
Right.
So he's just a hustler. So they would get a girl and get her banking information. And so the next day, any money that was coming in would be wire transferred to her account. Then she would cash the money. Well, he said we would do that for a week or so with a girl. Yeah. We'd have a few of them. He goes, and then once we get our money, we'd tell them that more money was coming. Like, oh man, there's even more money next week. So that they always think that more and more money's coming. So they keep paying her out or paying him out. And he goes, and then one day we just disappear. He goes, because we know at some point when they realize, hey, the scam's about to end with you, they're not going to give us the $7,000 they owe us. He goes, well, we do it for a week. They'd end up giving us $30,000 or $40,000 in the course of a week or two. He goes, and we tell them, listen, we got even more money coming next week. And they'd be like, oh my gosh. He goes, then we just disappear.
Right.
Well, his buddy who did it started liking the girl, told the girl his real name.
That's where he fucked up at.
Brought her to his apartment. And so when the FBI shows up, grabs the girl. See, you have to understand
she folded like a fucking lawn chair.
We understand that most of the time, nobody gets in trouble.
Yeah.
Like if you deposit some checks or something and you're nobody, you don't have a criminal history or anything, you typically don't get in trouble. If it's like once, like these girls are probably in trouble. And he told me some of them got charged, but some of them, like he's like, if they did 4 checks, he said, or 4 wire transfers and gave us the money, and the cop showed up and they said, no, this is what happened. Like, I didn't know it was a scam. And once I figured it out, I told the guy I didn't want anything to do with it, and I'll help you. He said, those girls didn't get charged.
Right.
If it went on for 2 weeks, and and at that point it's been 2 weeks and you've laundered $40,000 or $50,000, those chicks typically got charged. Well, this chick had been doing it for weeks and weeks, and actually like opened up another bank account. What happens is the FBI grabs her, she folds, just like you said. And the problem is she knows his real name and brings them straight to his apartment. He gets busted. Then this guy that was in prison got busted. And then, of course, he got out. By the way, he got out, started doing it again, got caught again. I mean, it's just like he got like 10 years or something.
What's that movie with De Niro? Was that Heat when he was with the chick and he said that don't get involved with anything that you can't walk. Don't get involved with anything you can't walk away from in fucking 15 seconds.
Yeah, it's 30 seconds or less or something like that, or a minute or less. Yeah. Some guy had told him
that applies to this.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
It definitely applies.
But I'm saying this is the kind of guy that would run this scam.
It would probably all be right up his alley. Yeah, he would love it.
The problem too with me, if I did this and I saw that it worked, and I could actually open the bank accounts myself and kind of keep it self-contained, I know I'd fucking McDonald's it. I'd turn it into a mill. Next thing, I'd be renting 5 fucking houses, meeting people left and right, doing the, I'd be going on and on and on. Next thing you know, I'd turn a scam that basically would end up being a probational offense into a federal charge, and I'd have to do 10
into
years.
A conspiracy.
Like this was
well, that's how that shit snowballs, man. Right. You start making a little bit of money, you want to make a little bit more.
Yeah, says the guy that sold $3 million to the Russian mob, $3 million in credit cards. All right, so I think we just. No, I think. Are we good?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Yeah. All right. All right. I'm wrapping it up. Hey, this is Matt Cox, and I appreciate you guys watching. And do me a favor and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell so you get notified of videos like this. I'm here with John Boziak. Check out the Boziak Conundrum.
You got it.
And buy both of our books. He's got a book called Bent. I have a book called Shark in the Housing Pool. Leave a comment. I will definitely make every attempt to answer your comments, and I appreciate it. And see ya.